Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto is in India, the first foreign minister from Pakistan after a gap of 12 years, invariably leading to an India-Pakistan shadow over the SCO Foreign Ministers Meet. I'm Barkha, Dutt, here with the Mojo story. This special broadcast over the next 2 hours will take you inside what's happening at that big diplomatic meetup in Goa. A host of bilaterals, but there's one bilateral meeting that is not taking place, and that is between India and Pakistan. No surprises there. India has underlined our concerns about terrorism. Pakistan has taken a stated position since the abrogation of 370 in Jammu and Kashmir that it will not engage with India. Nevertheless, Mr. Bhutto has taken the intriguing decision of coming to Goa physically, though he could have joined virtually. The photo ops so far have revealed polite short handshakes, but nothing much more. Remember, a spate of bilaterals between India and the Chinese, India and the Russians have also taken place, and the Chinese foreign minister will be heading to Pakistan right after this SCO meet for a series of meetings there on Pakistan and Afghanistan. There's a lot to unpack here. In fact, some Indian diplomats have even questioned whether the SCO forum is of strategic value to India. Bilawal Bhutto's public utterances so far have been anodyne, mostly salams from Goa and so on. But his comments are coming at a time when there is great domestic turmoil in Pakistan, and Imran Khan just today has lashed out at an ISI general. So lots to talk about. Let's introduce our guests on the special broadcast today. Joining us as veteran diplomat, Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar. Good to see you, sir. Also joining us as military veteran, former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps, General Dutt. Good to see you, sir. Dr. Aisha Siddiqa, one of Pakistan's foremost strategic affairs analysts and authors, is with us. Always a pleasure, Aisha. Professor Amitabh Mattu, one of the country's most respected strategic affairs analysts, is with us. Pleasure as always, Amitabh. And finally, military veteran, Major General Dhruv Katoch, also the director of the India Foundation, is with us. It's very, very good to see all of you. Let me actually get first impressions. Let me start with you, Dr. Mohan Kumar, if I may. Diplomatically, we're talking about 14 countries here. Invariably, the attention is on India and Pakistan because of the cold storage the relationships are in. Were you surprised that Mr. Bhutto chose to come physically at a time like this? And could India have done anything but to invite him? There were those who suggested disinvite after the terror attack that we saw take place in Poonch. Now, not just is he here, there are 13 Pakistani journalists who have come with him, leading to a lot of speculation about what he might say in public and whether that will nosedive things further. Ambassador Kumar.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I see two ways in which an olive branch is being extended by either country, that is both India and Pakistan. From Pakistan's point of view, I think you're right. He could have done this virtually, Zoom call, and be done with it. I think from India's side, yes, we could have reacted to the terror attack and said, okay, we don't want you here. I think the fact that both of these things have not happened is leading me to interpret, and maybe I'm a bit of a macabre optimist, and when it comes to India-Pak relations, I think you have to be a macabre. So I think it's a good sign. But having said that, it could also be that the foreign minister doesn't want to miss an opportunity to talk to the Chinese foreign minister who's here, even though it's clear the Chinese foreign minister will go to Pakistan after this meeting. Nevertheless, he can meet with others, for example, and he doesn't want to let go of an opportunity. Pakistan is not involved in many of the high-profile regional plurilateral organizations like G20, G7. They have not been invited. They're not part of the BRICS. So this may be one way in which Pakistan wants to get back into the regional play game, if you like. That is the way I see Bilawal Bhutto's participation in the SCO meet.
And it's very interesting that you think there might be a different symbolism for Pakistan meeting the Chinese on Indian soil, even though I should underline the Chinese foreign minister is in fact headed to Pakistan right after the SCO summit, in fact on the 5th and 6th of May. So it's very intriguing what is actually going on. I want to just play out Bilawal Bhutto's very short statement. He's issued a couple of them. They've all been happy, happy, shiny, shiny, not saying very much except that he's looking forward to something positive and successful coming from this meeting. Let's play out one of those clips for you and then get reactions from the panel.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मैं बहुत खुश हूँ कि आज मैं यहाँ गोवा पहुँचा हूँ, शंघाई कोऑपरेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में शिरकत करना, पाकिस्तान के डेलीगेशन को लीड करना, और मैं उम्मीद रखता हूं कि इंशाल्लाह ताला जो हमारा SCO का CFM है वो बहुत ही कामयाब होगा। आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया।
General Katoch, Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar sees an olive branch by either side. Before Mr. Bhutto confirmed his physical participation, we saw the terror attack in Poonch. We saw a Jaish-e-Mohammed affiliate taking responsibility for this, the army squarely laying the responsibility as well at the doorstep of Pakistan-backed terror groups. There were those who said Mr. Bhutto should be disinvited. That did not happen. In fact, there's a big Pakistan media contingent in town. What do you make of what's happening, sir?
As far as Pakistan is concerned, it makes a great deal of sense for Mr. Bhutto to come to India. There is the optics are involved, and those optics are going to play out both in India and in Pakistan, more so in Pakistan. As far as India was concerned, I think we had absolutely no option. We are the chairman, we are the chair of the SCO, and to say that we will not invite any particular member, to me, really doesn't make sense. So, regardless of the fact that there was a terror attack on Indian soil, that invitation had to go, and he's accepted that invitation. I think that is much more a matter of protocol than to state that anything earth-shaking is going to happen. This is one. Number two, I think if he can maintain the ties at this present level of hostility, that itself is an achievement. To improve ties is going to be a great deal of effort. But it's going to be very easy to go downhill. And to say that the ties are at rock bottom, we haven't seen rock bottom yet. And even when we go to what we presume to be rock bottom, even that may not be rock bottom. The depths to which the ties can go downhill, there is no limit. It is unlimited. So I think the success of this meet will be to maintain it at its current level, if that can happen. That may not happen because we do not know what media statements may be given out by Mr. Bhutto, which will vitiate the atmosphere. But should he not make any such statements, I think the current level of hostilities will remain. And for me, that personally is a satisfactory state to be in. Barkha.
Well, I should say that in one of his video messages, and he's, by the way, shooting these videos and releasing them himself, some of them. And I think Vivek Karju was making the point that technology has changed the way diplomacy will now be conducted, because you don't actually need to have a formal press conference to issue these statements. In one of these statements, he has said, "Main ek ya do interview karunga." So I think this is the point. What's he going to say in public? Let's just listen to his latest statement, and then I'll come to you, Amitabh Mattu.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। आखिर हम गोवा भारत पहुंचे हैं शंघाई कोऑपरेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के मौके पे। मेरा सबसे पहले मुलाकात रूस का वज़ीर ख़ारजा से होगा, फिर मैं उज़्बेकिस्तान का वज़ीर ख़ारजा से मिलूँगा। उसके बाद हमारे सारे वज़ीर ख़ारजा जो मौजूद हैं उनके लिए खाना है जिसमें मैं जाऊँगा, एक तो इंटरव्यूज़ करूँगा, वो आज का प्रोग्राम होगा।
Okay, so basically he said in that statement, Professor Amitabh Mattu, that he is going to be doing one or two interviews. How do you think that is the nub of what will happen next? What he actually says in public? I think it's important to remind people that Mr. Bhutto used extremely coarse language to talk about Prime Minister Modi, and veteran diplomats like Vivek Karju have actually argued on this program that no Indian journalist should actually give him a platform till he apologizes. That history, apart from the institutional anxieties and tensions that we have with Pakistan, are going to be defining. Amitabh, how do you see what's happening?
I don't envy Bilawal Bhutto's visit, or indeed his role currently. He's working under tremendous pressures. He has a domestic audience of extremists, jihadis. He has to walk a tightrope as far as the army is concerned, the opposition on the ground. So whatever he says is going to not win him friends. It's going to win him more enemies. However, the fact that he's actually made the decision, wisely so, I think, to come to Goa, I think he should recognize that there are forums and there are forums, that when he is in Goa, when he's on Indian soil, it's important to not be a spoiler. What he must recognize is that India-Pakistan relations, even at the worst of times, there is a semblance of things happening. Now, Barkha, you are one of those who has actually understood, looked at India-Pakistan relations for a long period. None of us were really aware of the depths of the understanding that the National Security Advisor and the Army, General Bajwa and General Fayez, had arrived at during their Track 2 dialogue. Not only an LOC ceasefire, which has sustained itself, but a potential if Hamid Mir and Naseem Zahra's conversation, and I mean, I don't fully subscribe to that conversation, but the fact that Prime Minister Modi may have been planning a visit, that Pakistan had accepted the status quo in Jammu and Kashmir. If all that was happening behind the door, even while on the face of it there was hostility, it just tells you that there are many layers. It's India-Pakistan relations are like an archaeological site. If you just skim the surface, you'll find nothing. The deeper you go, the greater will be your understanding of what is the relationship all about. Bilawal is young, he's impetuous at times. His accent often intrigues me. Is this Christchurch or Sindh or a combination of various kinds of influences that he's grown up with? But Aisha can tell us a little more. Having said that, he has a long way to go. So the easiest thing for him to do is fall into the trap of grandstanding. Of course, ZAB, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, his grandfather, often used to grandstand as well. And that was the sign, that was one of the reasons why he was so popular. But if he has to learn one of the lessons from ZAB and his legacy, and from his mother's legacy, is that ultimately statesmanship is about not looking just till the tip of your nose, but looking further ahead. And if we can do that in India, on Indian soil, in terms of looking and taking a 50-year view of India-Pakistan relations, he will be doing his country proud, he'll be doing the subcontinent proud, and I dare say he will add a positive element to bilateral relations.
So what intrigues me is that at least two of our guests this evening, Professor Mattu and Ambassador Kumar, actually see some sort of opportunity for mild optimism if it goes a certain way. General Katoch is more of a realist and says it all depends on what Bilawal Bhutto says when he opens his mouth. And I'll come to Aisha on that in a moment. General Dua, first to you. Your thoughts,
sir? It should not be construed that I am agreeing with General Katoch because we are both army officers, but I go along with him. Firstly, let me just allow me to make a point about this invite or disinvite. Actually, if my knowledge is right, it is technically an invite goes out from the SCO Secretariat. So, I mean, just because we hold the chair, India cannot do anything otherwise. Yes, it is good of the Foreign Minister of Pakistan to take up the invite and come here personally and not do what the Defense Minister did, that is participate virtually. But we've seen in the UN, Bilawal Bhutto has used very unkind words for Prime Minister Modi. We've already spoken about it. So it all remains to be seen. And that's where I agree with General Katoch, that it remains to be seen as to what happens. There is no bilateral, but what happens in these ek-do interview that he does, or any other interactions with the media. I also don't subscribe to the view that Indian media should not give him, not entertain or not interview him at all. The point remains, he is here. It's a good sign. Our relations, we've already spoken about it. Our relations, the bilateral relations, are at a low. Rock bottom is something that we aren't defined, but they are at a low. Any such step, unless it goes sour, would actually add a positive element to our bilateral relations.
I would say that as someone who's lost count of how many India-Pakistan summits I have reported, and to be clear, this is not one of them. In fact, there is no scheduled bilateral at all. I have a feeling that if Mr. Bhutto gives an interview, by definition, he will say things that will not go down well with India, unless he is not asked a number of prickly questions. Aisha, I want to bring you in to also contextualize for us what's happening back home as Pakistan's foreign minister comes here. One, he's got the political opposition criticizing his visit. Two, you've got Imran Khan. Those are some of the tweets that's Fuad Chaudhry, the former information minister. Two, you have Imran Khan appearing dramatically in a wheelchair, and we'll play out that clip after you speak, or maybe in the middle of it, lashing out at an ISI general, whom he calls Dirty Harry. So, there are, as Amitabh said, this is an excavation site. There are wheels within wheels. There are layers upon layers. All of this comes amid calls for court-martial of a former Pakistan Army Chief, General Bajwa, for suggesting that Pakistan is so broke that it needs to give up its obsession with Kashmir. Aisha?
Yeah, Barkha, firstly, let me say something that I think in itself, it's a significant move that Bilawal has come. And I would like to correct Amitabh, my dear friend Amitabh Mattu here, who says that his followers or his constituency are Bilawal's constituency are the jihadis. No, they're not. In fact, his own constituency, Bilawal's constituency in Sindh, doesn't really care about this India-Pakistan conflict in this way. So he's not going to lose out politically in his own constituency. Where he can lose out is Punjab, the Punjabi army, and the generals. Now, I think firstly it's important that the army wasn't too confident to send Khaja Asif, but they probably agreed to not stopping Bilawal from coming when he did decide to come, which means that perhaps there's more confidence. Uh, Allow Bilawal to speak with his Christchurch accent. I think it's his when he speaks Urdu, it's a mix of Sindhi and English, not his English. The other thing is that it's not just. I mean, I was so amazed that it's not just Fawad Chaudhry who was who kind of not support, who spoke against the visit, but many seasoned diplomats from Pakistan who are part of track 2. I mean, I was surprised to see even Aziz Khan speak at a Jinnah Institute seminar. Minus Salman Bashir, every other senior diplomat he could have attended this virtually. Why did he need to go? I think it's important to understand that he is not the visit itself. You have the Russian foreign minister here, you have the Chinese foreign minister here. So he's in good company, and he wouldn't feel like the foreign minister of a poor country which is going from door to door begging for resources. I mean, his the friends that he is with at the moment, I mean, it gives him enough confidence. He's definitely with the Chinese. So his size, his political size, his diplomatic size is no longer this much. It's already risen to this much because of the company that is there.
But how much pressure would he be under domestically?
Of course.
To play to the gallery back home, therefore make a bunch of utterances on Indian soil that the Indians will be apoplectic about, thereby taking away from the optimism that Ambassador Mohan Kumar and Professor Mattu are feeling at this point.
See, Barkha, the fact of the matter is that, look, Pakistan and India do not agree on what is the bone of contention. The fact of the matter is that due to FATF, due to Pakistan's political conditions, terrorism is now something which is more historic. It's going to be there, but these are like ashes. This is not the main fire. Pakistan's capacity is now limited to pursue a policy that it used to. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, there is that he will have that baggage, definitely. But I think what I personally feel that if this meeting at the SCO is uneventful, nothing happens, he says his bit, attends the conference, goes back, there's no reaction, no nasty reaction from the Indian foreign minister, because he also speaks a lot with a different level of confidence, which may not necessarily be good for bilateral relations. I think if it's uneventful, it is good.
Yeah.
The pressure definitely is going to be there, but I think that there are a couple of things which you need to understand. One is, I think they would realize that India has remained silent on, as you said, as we discussed, on a recent terror attack. But secondly, the fact that it's the Indian High Commission which issued visas for 13 journalists who had to register and who had to be cleared from Delhi.
Yeah.
And the mood at the moment, I've spoken to a couple of friends there who are there in Goa, and they're feeling good. They say that we don't feel the hostility. So I think it will be nice and good if it's uneventful. They do, and he attends the conference and go back. Just one brief point. I think it's important to note if an interview happens,
Yeah.
look, he will be saying and what Pakistan's policy is. Now you can either get very angry and upset about it and say that this is Pakistan's position and leave it at that.
Right. Unfortunately, I think that is not how it will go. Unfortunately or fortunately. Unfortunately, from the point of view that we all agree that we want an uneventful, if dull, sort of next 2 days, next 24 hours. Unfortunately, I don't think that will happen. I think if Mr. Bhutto chooses to do an interview, he will make comments that will be unpalatable to us as Indians. Amitabh Mattu, I have a confusion in my head. How does Pakistan walk itself back from saying we will not engage with India bilaterally till the abrogation of 370 is reversed? Because that's not going to happen.
I mean, there are ways in which you can find yourself face savers. That's what diplomacy is all about. There are creative ways in which you can find ways in which Pakistan can rescind, or if not rescind, but at least walk back from that kind of absolutist stance. To begin with, if you, as I'm sure you would have, gone to the venue of the conference in the Taj Exotica in Goa, it's almost impossible for me to think that unless they make a specific decision that they will not encounter each other bilaterally, that Dr. Jaishankar and Mr. Bhutto do not meet each other, even if they choose to take golf carts and rather than walk from the cottages facing the sea to the conference venue. So even a walk along that path, I'm sure Dr. Jaishankar has the cerebral energy and Bhutto has the pedigree to be able to think of creative ways in which you can move ahead by putting Kashmir perhaps on the back burner. You can say that we're going to normalize relations, especially in terms of the multilateral agenda that both of us subscribe to.
Yeah.
Look, if there is determination and if there is packaging, in today's world, governments can often do what they want to do without appearing to have conceded much.
Here's what happens though, when in Pakistan you talk even off the record about possibly placing Kashmir on the back burner. Purportedly, former Pakistan Army Chief General Bajwa tried to do that. He met journalists off record and he said, we're broke. This can't be where we focus our energies. He also purportedly said that he wants to invite Prime Minister Modi to Pakistan. The second part, there's less consensus on whether he said that or not. You actually have two of Pakistan's leading commentators and analysts calling for a court-martial of General Bajwa. Please listen in, and then I want reactions to this clip.
I want to react.
उसमें बाजवा साहब आ गए अपना पूरा लॉ लश्कर लेके उनको लेक्चर दिया कि ये वही लेक्चर था जो उन्होंने एक दफा आपके और मेरे सामने भी दिया था। याद है ना क्या लेक्चर था? टैंक चलने के काबिल नहीं है,
तो आप कह रहे हैं
की मूवमेंट के लिए मेरे पास डीजल नहीं है, ठीक है जी, इस तरह की बातें की थी ना।
नॉर्मली ऐसा आर्मी चीफ के कोर्ट मार्शल होना चाहिए, और मुझे अब कहना पड़ेगा, मैं अंदर कमरे में कहती रही हूँ बट मुझे कहना पड़ेगा कि इस तरह नहीं होता।
20-25 सहाफियों को सामने बिठा के
कोर्ट मार्शल होना चाहिए। Amitabh, you want to? Yeah, I know everyone wants to react to that. Amitabh, yeah, quickly. Yeah.
If Hamid Mir and Naseem Zahra had said this while General Bajwa was the army chief, I would have saluted them. I would have said, here are two brave people with spine. क्योंकि गिरते हैं शाह सवारी मैदान जंग में, वो तिफल क्या गिरे जो घुटनों के बल चले. After the deed is done and he's gone, now behind his back when he has no power, no authority, you go and say court-martial him. It's disgraceful.
Yeah. Ambassador Kumar, sorry Aisha, just I'll come to you. Ambassador Kumar, I just played this to contextualize what happens, the politics of even mildly like stepping back from the rhetoric of Kashmir, what it might mean for a Pakistani politician or a Pakistani public figure. Ambassador Kumar.
So let me begin by saying I'm inclined to agree with Dr. Siddiqa frankly. And I think I like to take the view that Bilawal Bhutto can decide that this is a time to be a statesman rather than a politician. And I do not believe his interviews, assuming he does give those interviews, will be absolutely one sided. I prefer to look at a spate of articles that have come out from Pakistan, which appear to suggest, anyway, I'm talking about the English press, and Professor Siddiqa will have a better sense of whether this reflects public opinion or not. I think Pakistan realizes it's in terrible shape, it's in dire straits. There's also a mood and an opinion there in Pakistan that the relationship cannot go on like this. The ceasefire is held, and that is something on which I think we should be happy about. But I think the only thing that worries me is the election. So, if you're going to play to the gallery and, everybody knows the present government in Pakistan is not likely to win, Imran Khan's party is likely to win, and so on and so forth, that might tempt the foreign minister to say things. But otherwise, I don't expect him to lash out. I'm sticking my neck out. I'm no expert on Pakistan. I'm just a diplomat who's been following Pakistan. But it does seem to me there is a constituency in Pakistan which actually wants good relations with India. And I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of, obviously, we can't have substantive talks with Pakistan until the election is over there. So we need to have an interlocutor who's legitimate there. So I think I prefer to take a more optimistic line, Barkha, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I mean, this is not rocket science.
I just want to say that there's no clarity when an election will take place in Pakistan. The PPP and the Nawaz Sharif party, PMLN, are pushing hard for the election not to be held anytime soon. And as Mr. Bhutto is in India, Aisha, I know you want to react, and so do the generals. Imran Khan lashing out at an ISI general, wheels within wheels. Listen in briefly.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। 4 चीज़ों के ऊपर मैं बात करना चाहता हूँ। सबसे पहले कि जबकि मेरे पैर पे स्वेलिंग है, उसके बावजूद क्योंकि अदालत ने तलब किया है, मैं ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि हम अपनी अदालतों का एहतराम करते हैं। जो ये दूसरे नहीं, जो कि सारा वक्त अगर फैसला इनके लिए ना आए तो ये हर किस्म का जलील हरकतें करते हैं, प्रोपेगेंडा करते हैं जजेस के ख़िलाफ़। दूसरी चीज़, मैंने 3 दिन पहले लाहौर हाई कोर्ट को मैंने वाज़े कहा है कि 2 दफ़ा मुझे कत्ल करने की कोशिश की है, ये जिसको हम डर्टी हैरी कहते हैं। एक दफ़ा वज़ीराबाद, उसकी JIT की जो सारी फाइंडिंग्स थी उनको इसकी वजह से सैबोटाज किया गया, क्योंकि फाइंडिंग्स इसी की तरफ जानी थी। दूसरी दफ़ा 18 मार्च को जुडिशल कॉम्प्लेक्स में मुझे कत्ल करने की कोशिश की गई, और अब मुराद सईद के ऊपर भी ये डर्टी हैरी की वजह से अब कह रहे हैं कि दहशतगर्द है, लेकिन ये पीछे होगा अगर मुराद सईद को कुछ हुआ। तो मैं ये वाज़े करना चाहता हूँ कि अगर मुझे कुछ हुआ, इसके पीछे ये होगा डर्टी हैरी, और कोई दहशतगर्द नहीं, कोई और ये जो बताते हैं कि जी इनकी कोई बैरूनी एजेंसी से खतरा है, मुझे किसी से खतरा नहीं, मुझे इस आदमी से खतरा है और जो भी इसके साथ है।
अगर मुझे कुछ हुआ तो उसके पीछे डर्टी हैरी होगा. If you're wondering who Dirty Harry is, Aisha can tell us more, but he's talking about a top-ranking ISI general. I play all of this because the domestic politics of Pakistan cannot be divorced from the scrutiny that Bilawal Bhutto will find himself in, and the temptation he may find to play to the establishment, the deep state of Pakistan back home. Aisha?
Barkha, I think firstly, you're giving too much play to this drama queen called Imran Khan. Because just, earlier he was walking on foot, going somewhere else, and now, coming to the... And what nonsense. I mean, please, his supporters have used petrol bombs when the court asked for him, to come and present himself. He was in his house in Lahore, and police came to take him because the courts asked the police that because he's not attending, go and get him. And when the police came, they threw petrol bombs. We've seen Pakistani politicians, Pakistani prime ministers being hung, jailed. None of them have resisted the state as he's doing. So, but he's basically, that also means that, there is a division within the establishment itself. That's what we are looking at. And the fact that he continues to speak, the fact that and your and mine dear friends, Naseem Zehra and Hamid Mir, chose to lie about an event. Let me make it very clear about the earlier, clip that you showed. This conversation between between Naseem Zehra and Hamid Mir. Firstly, that I've spoken with some of the other of the 25 journalists who were there. They don't say that Bajwa said that trucko mein tel dalne ke liye paisa nahi hai. Remember, when he called these people, he had already pushed back India on the surgical strike in Balakot. He had done an even with India on that. He hadn't lost it, and yet he realized that you can't have it on a daily basis. That there is a need, to kind of solve the issues. Now he didn't succeed is a different matter, and we can also speak about that. But the fact is that suddenly, and by the way, 2 years ago, 2021, when he in April 2021, when General Bajwa called the journalist, immediately 2 days later, the first and only person who reported it was Fahad Hussain. He had given the details, and without naming General Bajwa, but everybody had clarity that he was talking about General Bajwa. So what are these guys doing 2 years later?
But how does it impact the politics? Quickly, Aisha, I want to go to General Katoch and General Dua.
Yeah.
How does it impact the politics? Yeah.
See, basically, they're trying to create, they are, Hamid Mir and Naseem Zehra are part of that group, but, which are the hawks. Like you have hawks on your side, we have hawks on our side, and they're part of that. Now, the issue is that, yes, there is pressure. And I will repeat myself that once he gives an interview, he will present the Pakistani position. He will present it. And it's important to hear that. You see, you give your maximalist, and then when you sit on a table, whenever Pakistan and India sit on the table, then of course they can negotiate more.
But Aisha, I want to bring in General Dua and General Kato. General Dua, the point is, yes, there is a Pakistan position. From nomenclature of how Kashmir is described, to the position on separatist groups like the Hurriyat Conference, to position on terrorism, to positions on Kashmir, everything is different. And I will remind everybody again, the sight of that truck going up in flames in Poonch has just happened, of our soldiers being burnt. Now, General Dua and General Katoch, you have both served in Kashmir. When Bilawal Bhutto, I'm not even saying if, when Bilawal Bhutto presents what Aisha calls the known Pakistan position, the difference is he's doing this on Indian soil. He's doing it outside the context of a bilateral. He's doing it on the sidelines of a multilateral forum. How do you think it'll go down? General Dua?
Yep, thank you. Barkha, the short answer is, however we may rationalize it as a compulsion, the argument that Aisha puts forward is all well taken. But on Indian soil, without a bilateral, this will not go down well.
Yeah.
I would feel, like Dr. Mohan said, he can go down as a statesman if he just limits himself to the summit, to the SCO meet that he's come here for, and say that this is the moment. I mean, I think this is what his mother and his grandfather were both statesmen, and they had such charisma. They would have press eating out of their hands. I mean, this, I would feel, is his moment to make that statesman like impact, rather than for compulsions of his government, if not his constituency back home, if he indulges in what would be a bilateral, what would in any case not go down well.
General Katoch, I think as analysts, you can understand the politics of Pakistan. As Indians, it is a different, more visceral, more emotional response. The government here will also be guided by the larger public opinion, just like Bilawal Bhutto will feel the pressure of public opinion in his country. Are we
But
basically saying,
yeah.
unless Bilawal Bhutto keeps all public utterances to SCO, we are doomed to see something terrible happen at the end of these 24 days? Or are we more optimistic like Amitabh and Mohan?
No, very frankly, I don't think I'm looking at a doomsday scenario. But I'm simply saying that if you can maintain, don't let the situation get worse than what it is. Because as I had stated in my opening remarks, there's no limit, the depths to which it can go bad, there are no limits to that. But before I answer this, I want to get back to this Naseem Zahra interview.
Yeah.
In this particular interview, it is my opinion that it doesn't really matter what the general said. He said it in a closed door meeting, and he wanted to convey a point that going to war with India is not an option. You see, Pakistan is faced with multiple challenges. They have got an internal security problems are there. Their economy is in a very bad shape, and there is political instability. You see, there is a lot of political infighting also. They were having tensions with Imran Khan, etc., etc. Now, considering that, he was looking at it from a different point of view, that this is not the right time for Pakistan. You are not physically fit enough to go to war. Very frankly, no country is ever fit enough to go to war. You ask any general, everybody will want more, whether it's the United States, whether it's Russia, China, India, or Pakistan. So he was actually giving out a particular type of concern. Nowhere, in my opinion, and having known from my contact with various Pakistani military officers, did he ever intend to convey that they don't have the will or the capacity to fight? So let us not get, in my personal view, that, I would put that interview aside. I personally think that these two journalists have behaved in a manner in which they should not have done. It requires much greater journalistic ethics to, than to come out right now and say such words. One.
Yeah.
Number two, when Bilawal Bhutto has got an excellent opportunity now, he can talk of cooperation within the SCO limits. And that is what he should do. Even if he's asked a direct question on bilateral relations, all that he has to say is, we can speak a lot on bilateral relations when a bilateral issue comes up. This is SCO. And in SCO, we can all cooperate because we have got certain international challenges. Now, it is up to him to seize that moment. It will not make the relations better. It will prevent them from going worse. And in future, when the next visit takes place, we are starting off on a better footing. So, in my view, there is a great opportunity as far as Pakistan is concerned and as far as Mr. Bhutto is concerned. But as far as India is concerned, it won't make a difference either way, very frankly. But for Pakistan, I presume it should make a difference. And I hope he makes that effort.
I think that's an excellent point, that all Mr. Bhutto has to do is that for the length of his visit in India, when asked questions, he should confine his public comments to the SCO. Will he do that? Won't he? We don't know. Before I take final comments from all of you, my colleague Padma Rao is on the ground in Goa reporting the SCO forum for our platform for Mojo Story. Padma, I know everyone's extremely tight-lipped, but as Amitabh was just mentioning, there is no avoiding Foreign Minister Jaishankar meeting with Mr. Bhutto. Mr. Bhutto mentioned in a video message that he's going to be attending a khana, as he called it. The khana is, of course, hosted by India. Earlier we used to have all this analysis of body language, handshake hua, nahi hua. No one's expecting hugs, but handshakes at least between the two ministers.
I don't really know what's happening inside and what is being expected. Perhaps there will be handshakes. We did see some handshakes upon the arrival of Bilawal Bhutto. But just quickly and very briefly, Barkha, because I joined your talk a little late, I just had a few observations to make. I think Dr. Siddiqa said that, the people here are very hospitable. That's the feedback she's getting from her colleagues, from Pakistani journalists who are here. I've met a lot of them today, and it was very nice, yes, indeed, to see a lot of colleagues that one has known from traveling around the world on various stories. But I'd just like to point out one thing, people are hospitable in India, Dr. Siddiqa, but people are also very angry. There is a level of anger. Goa is not just full of Goans who live here and who are, largely cut off from the north and what's happening in the north. There are a lot of, especially at this time of year, a lot of domestic tourists here. We've been talking to a lot of them. And while they say that, they're happy that the summit is taking place here, there are no sort sort of, great expectations from it as such for different reasons. But specifically about Mr. Bilawal Bhutto's visit, they do say that there is a lot of anger. Nobody has forgotten 26/11. It's really amazing. Nobody has forgotten 26/11. Nobody has forgotten the recent attack in Punch on our soldiers. And certainly, and a fewer people may have heard of Mr. Bhutto's Zardari's remarks at the UN, in which he used very abusive language against an elected prime minister of this country. There is an underlying anger amidst people. So yes, people are hospitable here, but they're not necessarily, they're not
I think
necessarily
that's
ready to
always
accept
been,
anything.
yeah, Padma, that's always been the dichotomy of the India-Pakistan relation. I
Yeah.
think we all have
There's-
personal friendships, and then the moment we
Yeah.
start talking about institutional relations, we can't
Yeah.
agree on a single damn thing.
Yeah. The other
Yeah, sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead, Padma. Yeah.
Sorry. Just the other thing that Dr. Siddiqa had also said that, perhaps Bilawal is hoping to cash in on the good relationship with China, to see Pakistan through. And now one must remember that China's image is also changing, in the international arena. China is also no longer viewed with, as the business. I mean, it remains the trade partner number one for many countries. But the point is that there have been many events in recent past because of which China is also viewed as with a certain amount of suspicion. So I would tend to agree with what General Katoch said on a recent debate a few days ago on one of your shows, Barkha, where he did say that let's agree to disagree would be the best position to take. Let's agree, let's face the fact, that terrorism sponsored by Pakistan is not going to end, as we have seen repeatedly despite repeated assurances. So let's agree to remain as hostile neighbors, but neighbors, yes. So if Bilawal makes a statement, and if he does address the media, unfortunately, the questions that will come from especially the Indian media, will also be largely relating to India-Pakistan relations. Then again, we're all talking about, he should stick to the SCO.
I think that's a very good point. That the Indian
Very short,
media,
very quickly.
Yeah, I
Very
have to
quickly.
start taking
Sorry
last
about
comments,
that.
Padma.
Yeah,
So
very
just
quickly. Just very
yeah.
quickly. Since we're all saying he should stick to the SCO, I just want to point out that the charter of the SCO prohibits everyone anyway from commenting on bilateral relations, or what are seen as purely bilateral relations in the context of the SCO. As you would have seen from the statements of the Foreign Minister, Jaishankar, Dr. Jaishankar, today, bilateral relations did, however, prevail during the bilateral meetings, the individual bilateral meetings. I mean, for instance, Russia and India spoke of BRICS as well.
Got it. And that is the
so,
paradox, that we are having bilaterals take place on the sidelines of a multilateral forum. So where there are bilateral politics to be pursued, of course they're being pursued. Let's take last comments. Amitabh, let me start with you. I think that's an excellent point by Padma. One, about the anger among people in India. Two, it's not as if Indian journalists are going to ask only questions about the SCO. They're going to ask him about Kashmir. They're going to ask him about Poonch. They're going to ask him about Pulwama. They're going to ask him about Imran. It's the nature of journalism. And then, in my opinion, either Mr. Bhutto says, I'm not here to answer these questions. I'll talk about this when I go back home. I think the Indians would appreciate that, but I don't know if he has the political capital right now to be able to do that. Amitabh?
I think, given the manner in which technology works, he can continue doing these Twitter feeds. He can say, I'm going to, please send me your questions on Twitter and I'll answer them, and then can decide what he wants to answer and send out these feeds. And now with Elon Musk allowing you to expand on your Twitter feed, he can probably give a longish statement, a monologue. I really don't know why he needs to give an interview in this day and age. But I think the essential point is that no one denies the history of bilateral relations, the anger, the hostility. The question is, can we introduce and inject a civility in our bilateral relations, even when we are discussing primarily multilateral relations? That is the opportunity which Mr. Bilawal Bhutto has. He can either squander that opportunity because he thinks there's a constituency back home, and Aisha says it's not really such a strong constituency, at least not in Sindh, but I mean, he is the foreign minister of Pakistan. Or if he doesn't squander it, he can try and open a window where at least a fresh air can flow in between the two neighbors. It will not transform. It will not magically change. There is no magic mantra for resolving bilateral relations. You know that as well as I do. But we can at least begin to talk in a more civilized way. As Bashir Badr, the great Urdu poet, said, Let us meet in a spirit so that 10, 20 years ago, none of us should be embarrassed about the way we treated each other.
Fair enough. Mohan, I know you echo that optimism, or that hope rather, not that optimism, that hope. You hope
Yes,
each
I
time.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I do. So I'm going to finish with the Micawber-like remarks, if you like. I mean, I genuinely think the minister Bilawal Bhutto has given himself enough scope by saying this is not a bilateral visit. So if somebody asks me about Kashmir and I am Bilawal Bhutto, all I need to say is I am not on a bilateral visit. My position is well known. That's it. And then move on to talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, whose main objective is to connect Central Asia with South Asia, talk about trade, talk about connectivity, and say that both Pakistan and India have huge problems of poverty, underdevelopment. Let's use the SCO to do something. And that would make him a statesman, in my view, but who knows? We'll wait and see. Thank you.
Aisha, you think he could handle the question the way it's being suggested? Because the question will come.
Well, yes, he can handle it. Depends on what was agreed before he came. He must have given a good thought of how he's going to conduct himself. Secondly, the couple of interviews that he talks about, let's not forget that these interviews have been requested by different media groups in India. And if they want to kind of express the same anger and kind of try to corner him, as your colleague here has said, I thought when I was saying that people are not hostile, it's like, it's a welcome thing, that and which the journalists in Pakistani journalists didn't go over echoing. Of course they understand. I mean, none of us is not aware of how Indians feel, or how what has happened. So I think it's important that but if they try to make it a sticky interview and try to kind of, within quotes, stick it to him, then of course he's going to respond.
Yeah, and I think he will accept those interviews knowing those questions are being asked. And hence, Vivek Karju, General Dua, made the argument that this one, let Indian media sit it out, because it takes you into that loop that we're also familiar with. Quickly, from the two generals, closing comments before we let you all go. General Dua, quickly, sir.
Thank you. Yes, it remains to be seen. But I'm sorry. There is good hospitality, there is goodwill amongst people, but media being media, I doubt that they will be kind. They will ask sticky questions, and that's where you require statesmanship-like qualities to be able to rise above them. Whether that will happen or not, we will see that tomorrow.
General Katoch, on an earlier program, in despairing against the Pakistani refusal institutionally, not individually, by people whom we can all connect with, to budge on terrorism, you said, let us live as enemies if we can't live as friends. You hear the hope from Amitabh and Mohan, also from Aisha. What do you say?
No, you see, I stick to my stand. The point is, what are the most critical things which are affecting India and Pakistan? Every time you say we want to live like brothers, it's not working out. So let us stop saying, let us live as brothers, let us live as friends, let us be, or whatever you want to be. Let us accept the fact that we are hostile to each other, that we are enemies. Now, having accepted that, it is, learn to live with it. And once you learn to live with that not having any expectations at all, you can only move forward. You can't go back. Yeah. That is why in this interview, it is important for Mr. Bhutto, even when he is asked direct questions, he simply has to avoid this question. He says, we will discuss here. He says, I'll confine my remarks to the SCO. And there is a great deal which can be said for the SCO, for cooperation within these countries. If I was a diplomat there, I won't find it difficult. I'm an army chap. I'm not a diplomat, and we've got very seasoned diplomats here. But I can assure you, any amount of press you can ask me, I know how to answer them without getting into a controversy. I see no reason why Mr. Bhutto cannot do it. My last point, just one, as Dr. Siddiqa is here, my respects and regards to her. We met recently, and we have great admiration for her. I thought I must put that officially on record.
That is nice, and it is in the spirit of civility. I just wanted to end with an observation of irony. Never before have so many people hoped that very little happens at a forum. We're all waiting for it to be bland, vanilla, uneventful, and if it is that, we will say it was a success, at least from the India-Pakistan point of view. A limited success is what in aviation they call a holding pattern. Just keep the holding pattern. That would be good enough for now. To the generals, Dua and Katoch, always a pleasure. To Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar, Professor Amitabh Mattu, and Dr. Siddiqa. Indeed, thank you so much to all of you. We are going to continue our special programming. In fact, I'm going to hand it over to Padma to bring us up to speed with what's happening. Let's bring Padma back on the screen. And also, if we can add my colleague Zafar Iqbal, I can see him at the back end. We can bring up Zafar, and I will leave it to both of you to update our viewers on the very latest, what might be expected by this India-hosted dinner. Can that handshake be avoided? And for now, I will say goodbye to both of you as I hand it to Zafar and Padma. Thanks for watching. Back with all of you at 8:15. As I see you then. Zafar.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Barkha. And Padma, we've been tracking these developments all through the day, the SCO meeting. Basically, we discussed a lot about it. Foreign Minister Jaishankar had bilateral meetings with the Russian counterpart and the Chinese counterpart. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is in India. He's put out some video statements. Shehbaz Sharif has tweeted about the SCO in Pakistan. Imran Khan had a court hearing, and then he has blamed serving ISI general for the alleged victimization. So many things are happening simultaneously, but you have been there in Goa tracking all those developments. If I may start by asking what exactly happened today, the series of events, the delegates reached there, and how did the day go about?
Thank you, Zafar. Well, initially there was very little that could be seen, that visibly noticeable about the SCO, because Goa is this particular place where it's happening is not a very, it's kind of off the beaten track, and there's not much security on the streets except around the hotel. But this morning, certainly when the delegates started arriving, and when the news came that Bilawal Bhutto was coming, there was more excitement building up, and then the Pakistani journalists arrived, and soon we heard that Bilawal was flying directly from Karachi. So as news of Bilawal gathered, so did the security presence around the hotel and his entourage. Finally, when it rolled in at well past 3 p.m., had a long line of cars and ambulances. I'm giving you those visuals which you've already seen. That was more or less the atmosphere. The build-up, even amongst people, was, happened really around the afternoon when he arrived. Prior to that, of course, as you know, Minister Jaishankar had already started the day with talks, bilateral meetings, with various dignitaries, including with the foreign minister and the foreign ministers of Russia as well as China. He started the day by speaking to the Secretary General of the SCO, who is, of course, naturally also a gentleman from China, Secretary General Shang Ming. And, talk there was really, they focused on things like startups and traditional medicine and youth empowerment and things like that. Interestingly, they even spoke about Buddhist heritage, though I really wonder how China would, how much relevance China places on Buddhist heritage in a forum along with India, given that it shelters the Dalai Lama and, the reported attempts at indoctrination in China and all that. So after that, then of course he's met Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov of Russia, and interestingly, they did speak. They touched upon issues which had nothing to do with the SCO. They spoke about G20. They spoke about BRICS, other forums in which they are members, and the same thing happened also with China. I mean, the talks were certainly not restricted to matters pertaining to the SCO. They did talk about the border issues, and they also discussed. However, they also discussed the G20 and BRICS, again, of which they are both members. So this morning there was a press briefing, an official press briefing by Mr. Dammu Ravi, who is a secretary in the senior secretary in the Indian government, and he debriefed media, a small select group of journalists. I was also present on the progress that has been made by the SCO, including the various initiatives that they've launched, like the International Millet Day and handicrafts exchanges, Suraj Kund and things like that. So all the soft initiatives. And he also stressed that there were 100 meetings held under the aegis of India since it took over presidency of the SCO. So these were broadly the issues. And then later, of course, we did try to get through to various sources who did not wish to speak on record. And they did tell us that there will be 15 decisions taken at this meeting. Of course, they couldn't really tell us what these decisions are. And they said terrorism will come up, but it'll only come up with a broad brush. It's not going to be, related specifically to a country or a region. So in a sense, in a nutshell, that is what has happened today. And now, of course, And,
yes. We also saw that in your report, about those 15 things. But coming back to Bilawal, before he left Pakistan, he put out a video statement and he said, of course, he will be going to India and he'll be having bilaterals with his counterparts. He did not specifically rule out a bilateral meeting with India. Of course, it doesn't seem to be on the cards as of now, but he did not rule it out. If we can play that soundbite.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। आज मैं गोवा भारत जा रहा हूँ, जहाँ मैं पाकिस्तान का डेलीगेशन को क़यादत कर रहा हूँ टू अटेंड द शंघाई कोऑपरेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस काउंसिल ऑफ फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स। मेरा जाना ये वाज़ेह पैगाम भेजता है कि पाकिस्तान कितना अहमियत ये SCO को देता है और कितना सीरियसली अपना मेंबरशिप को भी लेता है। आई एम लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू एंगेजिंग बायलैटरली उन ममालिक के साथ जो इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का हिस्सा है। आपका शुक्रिया।
Bilaterally जो इस organization का हिस्सा है, so he kept the window open, or you think it's just not possible given the dynamics of the relationship between India and Pakistan, and it's been strained for such a long time and there's virtually no contact?
Zafar, I've been reading a lot of what people say that it's virtually ruled out. It's virtually ruled out. The thing is that I would like to point out that interestingly, the Indian side has not ruled it out in so many words either. What they have said, if you actually read between the lines and see what they've said, each and every comment made by the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has simply pointed to the lack of confidence and faith in Pakistan as the chief sponsor of terror against India. And, given the example of Punch, given the kind of intemperate language that was used recently by Mr. Zardari at the United Nations against no less than an elected Prime Minister of India, that India is not, that there isn't much to talk about. Now, I think the reference was that there isn't much to talk about on bilateral matters. And certainly, but at the same time, as one of the panelists on Barkha's show was just pointing out, you cannot rule out meetings on the sidelines of such summits, because let's not forget there are only 8 countries and there are only 8 individuals. They may bring delegations, but ultimately the 8 foreign ministers are bound to be, and they're all in one hotel. They're bound to be, bumping into each other, if you like, somewhere. And even if you don't call it a formal bilateral meeting like this, for instance, today's bilateral meetings were tweeted about each time by the Foreign Minister Jaishankar, Mr. Jaishankar. So that may not happen. It may not be such a big ticket, kind of so highly visible bilateral meeting, and it may certainly not be billed as a bilateral meeting. But I don't rule out some kind of contact or communication. Having said that, I think what India is really saying is that just as Home Minister Rajnath Singh said about, the other day about China and the defense, during the defense summit of the SCO, when he said that, there isn't, his statement that came afterwards, when he said that there really isn't, not much can be done about bilateral relations with China till the situation on the border improves. Yeah. I think that is upping the ante, and I think that is what India meant through these statements. That look, we may brush into each other, we may bump into each other.
We'll come to China, but specifically about Bilawal, the dinner. He also gave out that statement, and he said that he's attending that dinner. Did he indicate the dinner that's being hosted by the Indian Foreign Minister?
Well, I hear from many Pakistani journalists that yes, he is attending the dinner, and he certainly. And there can't be so many dinners happening in the hotel at one time. You know, this is a dinner which has been, again. Let's not forget that this is a dinner which has been hosted by India for specifically all foreign ministers. And I checked again, and all foreign ministers have been invited. This was reconfirmed by officials on the Indian side, and there was no specifying as to who will not come. What I was told was that 3 foreign ministers have not arrived, but those are neither of China nor of Pakistan. As we know, they're already here, and so is the foreign minister of Russia. And I presume these 3 ministers came a day earlier simply because there are greater issues, a greater number of issues to discuss between these countries. The Central Asian republics are mostly here, but 3 of them have not arrived yet. So those 3 gentlemen are not going to be at the dinner today. That is what I learned, and I certainly expect Bilawal to attend.
Right. And before we discuss that, what is scheduled tomorrow for tomorrow, let's also have a look at your report, the report you sent us on the SCO agenda, if we can play that.
The media, a very select group of the media, has just been debriefed by the Secretary Economic Relations, Mr. Dammu Ravi. Some of the things he did was to outline the membership of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and he also stressed on how India has held more than 100 meetings since it took over the presidency, and he spoke of the many soft initiatives that the countries have undertaken, the countries of SCO that include Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, India, Uzbekistan, Russia, and China. And he did say that, he stressed the cultural commonalities, and he stressed the Buddhist links that these countries shared. And he pointed to the success of many initiatives like the promotion of millets and the crafts mela at Suraj Kund. And he also pointed out that though India joined in 2017, India became the president of the organization in 2022 and has hosted, as I said, more than 100 events since then. Now, that was as far as the Secretary Economic Relations and the media briefing was concerned. What Mojo Story has learned from other sources is that about 15 decisions are likely to be taken at this SCO summit, which will take place tomorrow. The nature of these decisions is not known yet, but there will be about 15 decisions. We also learned that terrorism may be discussed, but really, with a broad brush. There is going to be no specific discussion on terrorism in specific countries and against specific countries or specific organizations. And in any case, we learned that bilateral issues between individual countries, as the SCO charter dictates, cannot be discussed at the SCO itself. So bilateral meetings on the periphery will take place, of course, but it's not hasn't been easy to find out what exactly will be discussed during those bilateral issues. I mean, will country A discuss issues with country B pertaining to only those 2 countries, or will they discuss issues that they have as members of this forum? Now, that is not very clear, but we did learn that these bilateral meetings that are being held, some of them today and some will be held tomorrow, will be free-flowing. That's what sources are telling us. So it's likely. And meanwhile, as we know, Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto is on the way. He left Karachi, and he left with a tweet in which he indicated that he, on his part, is open to bilateral discussions with all member states of the SCO. Of course, he did not specify India, but immediately he's been, as it is, Mr. Bhutto is under great pressure and is facing tremendous opposition over his visit to India. And there have been people slamming him for taking that plane and flying to Goa. He's flying directly to Goa, and he should be arriving here in about an hour. So as you can anticipate, the hotel behind me is a fortress. There's a vast police contingent here, and there's a lot of police presence here. And as Mr. Bhutto is expected in this hotel as soon as he lands in Dabolim Airport, which is about an hour away from Banaolim, where we are, where this hotel is, which is hosting the summit. This is Padma Rao reporting for Mojo Story. We'll be bringing you all the latest.
You discussed at length that what's happened today and also indicated what's going to happen tomorrow. But if you can explain what is on schedule tomorrow, what do we expect, what are the things that are lined up?
So tomorrow, as I said, 3 ministers have not arrived. So I expect initially, they're going to wait till about 10 o'clock. Those ministers and their delegations are expected to arrive by then. Then there's going to be a group photo, the obligatory group photo of all the heads of delegations. Then there'll be a meeting, an hour long, about an hour and a half long meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers. So all the ministers not likely, they will sit and meet. And then after that, they will sign these decisions, which I was talking about, the 15 decisions that I was talking about. That signing is expected to happen around noon or shortly before noon, and confidence building measures, basically. They're calling this the decisions of confidence building measures. So they're not really, decisions, if you like, in the strictest sense of the word, but they're steps towards decisions, so measures to build confidence to take those decisions. And then there's going to be a working lunch. And now this working lunch, of course, again speaks volumes. When you say working lunch, that is again a kind of an avenue where you could possibly see somebody just happens to be seated at a table, talking, and that becomes some sort of a bilateral chat, even though it's not billed as such. That's where I see a possibility. Then there is going to be another hour of signing of memorandums with new dialogue partners. As I said, there are new dialogue partners. One of them is Iran. So they will, and there will be bilateral meetings. Again, there's an avenue for official bilateral meetings, not backdoor bilateral meetings, but official bilateral meetings in the afternoon. And from 5 o'clock onwards, we expect to see the delegates depart, one after the other. So this is what is on the agenda for tomorrow. But then, of course, as one says, nothing can be ruled out.
Yes, and a lot of meetings scheduled. But I wanted to ask you also about China. Foreign Minister tweeted, and he said after his meeting with the Chinese counterpart, he said it's made it clear that the focus is on resolving the outstanding issues and ensuring peace and tranquility in the border areas. We know for sure that there is a standoff in eastern Ladakh for a long time, and Indians and Chinese have undergone series of engagements at the military level and at other levels to resolve that issue. Do you think that this is very significant, that India has reiterated that it stands since the incidents in eastern Ladakh took place?
Yes, it is very significant. And frankly, Zafar, I believe that, we focus a lot on the rifts and the very serious differences between India, China, and Pakistan. But and this is my personal opinion, it doesn't reflect on what others think. I think that organizations like the SCO are, have rifts and fault lines running through them, which are not only restricted to India, Pakistan, and China. These are the ones that concern us. I mean, if you look at even the SCO, for instance, you have the Russian Federation, Kazakhstan. They're good relations, but there is some tension there. President Putin had questioned Kazakhstan's existence as a separate nation. Then, you had deterioration of ties because of when Russia invaded Ukraine, between those countries. Then you have Kazakhstan and Kyrgyz Republic. They're good, but there was tension in the past. During elections, there was some interference, Then you have Kyrgyzstan and Russia and so on and so forth. So it's not, there are many, many fault lines in this organization. Or for instance, Kyrgyz Republic in Uzbekistan, it's good, but there is such a lot of dependency on Uzbek gas, so it gives Uzbekistan a tool. So Kyrgyzstan fears Uzbek expansionism, for instance, So then you have a challenge for Russia because Uzbekistan also has good ties with the United States, and northern Uzbekistan fears Russian expansionism in turn. So there are a lot of issues there. I could go on and on, but I won't do that. The basic point I'm making is that there are rifts, there are fault lines in such organizations, especially in one like this. They are inherent fault lines. So I don't really see them as, I don't see them heading anywhere unless all these fault lines are cleared miraculously, which I don't think is going to happen overnight.
So briefly, do you think that commonalities overweigh differences or differences overweigh commonalities here?
I would say whenever it is about economic superiority and might and territorial ambitions, and that seems to be a running thread in many of these countries. You have either the one very powerful country on which the other one is dependent, in which case you fear expansionism, or you have a very big country, a very large country, which is openly and making incursions into another country. Is just being blatant about it, and yet insists on continuing bilateral relations, or you have a third country which is sending in terrorists. So
right. So there are different dynamics attached to it, and different countries have their different concerns. Obviously, we'll be looking at all those developments very keenly tomorrow. But for now, our coverage continues on this important SCO meet that's happening in Goa. But for now, thanks so much, Padma Rao, for joining us. We'll be joined by my colleague Barkha Dutt next, and our coverage on SCO continues.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.